Hello. I'm very happy to host all Golden Apricot followers back to our panel discussions. This is our first panel discussion in November edition, already December edition of Golden Apricot International Film Festival. And we are hosting a very interesting discussion that I'm anticipating to be very interesting with Canadian film professionals, and we are going to discuss the challenges of COVID-19 for Canadian cinema and to learn about the experience of professionals, how they cope with it, how they faced it, and how they overcame it. For those who are who want to listen to our discussion in Armenian, you can choose the interpretation part and change the language. Since there is no Armenian, you need to change into Chinese, and then by miracle you will be listening into Armenian translation. And yes, if you would have any questions, you can put them on in Q&A section, and at the end, at the last 15 minutes, I will be reading them and our panelists will be answering to those. And so, hello everyone, hello our panelists, and I'm very happy that you had time to join us this early morning in Montreal. To talk with us about Canadian cinema. So I will introduce each of panelists and then I will be asking you questions. So we have Claude Damas, who film director, whose film was playing at Golden Apricot Film Festival this year, and 2 weeks ago, our audience had the opportunity to watch the film. The film was called The Woman, My Mother. Another panelist is Bruno Daquet, who is the artistic director of Rhythm Film Festival, which is a documentary film festival in Montreal. And we have Telefilm Canada representative, artistic director of business and co-production affairs, Camille Guimard.
Good morning.
Yes. So let's start. And also I would like to mention that all this event and all our Canadian in Focus program is happening with the help of Telefilm Canada, and this is cooperation between Golden Apricot and Telefilm Canada. So the first, I would like to start probably from Camille and ask her about the organization, to tell us a bit more about Telefilm Canada, what it's doing, and what measures were taken during this year.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Sona. Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to say hello to my colleagues on this panel. Claude, congratulations on your film, and Bruno also on the edition of your festival. Good morning to everyone participating to this event today. Telefilm Canada is a Canadian agency with offices in 4 Canadian cities. We cover 4 time zones. Circumstances for production are very different from one city to another, one region to another. South and the North have very different contexts. So our response to the pandemic touched 3 main groups. First, our staff and employees. Second, our partners, producers, festival event organizers, distributors. And third, and probably most importantly for everyone, our programs. So on March 16th, we migrated everyone, all of our staff, from our office to their homes. So we left on Friday evening, and on Monday at noon, pretty much everyone was hooked and installed either on the kitchen table or at home. Our first response was to contact our partners to see how everyone was doing, what the impact of this change was in the immediate immediately, but also what they could see it as events and projects were being organized and planned. So we had various communications with festival organizers and with filmmakers and producers. Obviously, the impact was tremendous, and there was a period of a lull in activity as everyone was reinventing or trying to find ways of moving ahead. I think festival organizers were the first ones to be very touched by this. Also, producers were just about to go into principal photography or saw their activities on set halted by the pandemic. So we took many measures to mitigate. We discussed with our clients, and eventually we were assigned by the federal government additional funds that were called emergency funds to keep everyone or to keep most of our partners afloat. So we had additional funding from the federal government. We had to create programs, emergency funding programs, very rapidly, and deploy programs that could financially, producers, festival organizers, distributors, exhibitors. Theatrical exhibitors were also very touched by the pandemic as their activities were completely shut down. So this is in a nutshell what happened to us. In terms of production, it was quite interesting to see the creativity, the resourcefulness of production teams who were struggling to get back on set and to get project going despite the pandemic, and in full respect of sanitary measures that were put in place by various levels of government, and also guilds, professional associations. So we worked very closely with producers to ensure that we could support, that we could help, and that we would have the tools to be able to finance on time. It required a lot of discussions, but certainly brought us at Telefilm, our staff, a lot closer to the production community, and I would say for my colleagues who work more closely with festival organizers, with film festivals. In addition, as you may know, Telefilm participates in international events, and the challenge there was to transpose our physical presence into a virtual presence. So my colleagues from the promotion team worked really hard to create a virtual presence or a virtual Canadian pavilion at international events that were held virtually. So in a nutshell, this is what has happened. I will be happy to answer more specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The most painful point, as you said, yes, it was for the festivals, and even for the Golden Apricot that was supposed to happen in July, we faced all these difficulties. So did part of it in July and then moved the other screenings part to November, with the hope that situation will change, but it became even worse. But whatever. I would like to ask about your experience, Bruno. How was your? I know that Rhythm Film Festival also happened in two different parts, right? It was in November and December, or it was for the forum and for the screenings. Yes. So please tell us about that.
You mean the whole year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the people. I mean, in Canada, the people who were less affected by COVID were actually the festivals themselves, because we still had access to funding, as opposed to some of our other colleagues around the world, like especially in the US, when I've seen like so many people getting fired and losing jobs. So in terms of festivals, the good thing is from the start, any Canadian festival knew it would have enough funding to do something. Do what we didn't know, but we knew we would be able to do something, which is very different from the case of the filmmakers that Claude will talk about later. And they've seen all of their films being shown online, and it kind of sucks. But for festivals, we still have jobs. We were able to do something. And the thing is, we decided very early on that we wouldn't be able to fight the virus. So we did everything we could to secure an online edition. So we were hoping to do some physical events, if possible, but it's always been Plan B. Plan A was the online edition. And the other decision that we made very early on was to not to try and reproduce a physical festival. So my point was, if you're doing an online event, you have to think about how people are reacting and participating in online events, which is why we decided that the festival would not take place over 10 days, but 3 weeks, because there is just no way someone would, in 10 days, watching so many films in such a short amount of time from home. So we decided it would be 3 weeks. And the other thing that we decided that worked well for us was that it was over like periods of 7 days. The point was that if you have the same content over 3 weeks, people are going to be excited the first 3 days, and then they will forget about you. They will go on with their lives. And I've seen that happening everywhere. And the thing is, I keep reminding, because I'm also a film critic, so I'm also very aware how people, from my community of film critics, consume films online. And the first thing that I knew, like right off the bat, is that you can have a film on the platform. It's been there for 3 years. No one cares. As soon as you publish something saying like, oh, everyone, the film will be, it's going to be over like in 10 days at the end of the month or something like that. You see so many people in your surroundings watching the film just because it's going to disappear. So it's this kind of tricky thing that you have to do online. You have to it's great to have the films more accessible, yet at the same time, if you have too many things for too long, no one cares. So we decided it would be like periods of 7 days, and it worked really well. We decided also to create we knew we couldn't do anything to really make it amazing for the filmmakers, unfortunately. You can try as much as you can, but a Zoom discussion is not kind of the real thing. So and you can do, filmmakers have done so many online Q&As that we also know that were happening in November. So by November, when you're asking a filmmaker, hey, are you willing to do the kind of 135th online Q&A this year? There's a fairly good chance the filmmaker will be like, oh, yes, I'll do it. But it's not because I'm happy. I'm tired. I don't see people. I can't really interact with the audience. So we made it like with the audience in mind, saying like, okay, it's going to be very accessible. There won't be any kind of individual tickets for the films, because we wanted people to have access to more content. Which is why we only had like 2 accesses, which were like the festival pass and accesses to specific sections. We also decided that we wanted to get rid of differences between short, medium, and feature length, because online it doesn't make any sense to keep those boundaries. It makes sense physically when you program specific short programs in a theater. Online, it makes no sense. We decided to get rid of the traditional difference between competition films and non-competition films. We still had competitions. It's just that we never talked about it at all, because it's the same thing. Competitions are important for who? For the industry and the filmmakers. The audience doesn't care, couldn't care, less about competitions. They care about awards sometimes. When they see that a film has won an award, it can, bring, more audience in. But before the film gets the award, like if you're simply listing films in competition, no one cares. Like the audience is about the films. It's not about, competition or not. So we also decided that, and we did no Q&A, and we decided to focus on dialogues between filmmakers. So for example, that was the other idea, was that because I can sound a bit pessimistic, but usually I more like see myself as someone who's very pragmatic, pragmatical in his. So I thought there are so many Q&As already online. So why bother be, the next one saying the same thing about the same film with the same filmmaker? So we decided that there were two ways to kind of do something different. One was filmmakers, in discussion. So filmmakers who hadn't discussed before. So it would create automatically something that you haven't seen, in the festivals before you. And the other thing is we did also a few podcasts. And the podcast, it was the same thing. The podcast was, we won't do a podcast about the film. We'll do a podcast about the whole career of the filmmaker. So that even if you don't have the time to listen to the podcast while the festival is on, it will still be interesting content next year, as opposed to something which would be more, entirely focused on, and the results were like really good, actually. I mean, they were better than we expected. And the good thing with the online is that we discussed it a bit. It's a good thing to be accessible elsewhere than downtown Montreal. And we had a lot of people writing to us saying like, it's the first time we can watch films from our IDM, because if you don't live Montreal close to, transportation system, or if you're a parent with 2 kids and you need a babysitter, obviously you don't have access to cultural events such as ours. So that was a good thing, but there's still a lot of work to do, because it's not because you're available in whole of Quebec or Canada that the whole of Quebec or Canada knows about you, right? It's you're there, but online is a really kind of blurry environment. But it worked well. The 2 sad things were we had to get rid of a lot of our staff, temporary staff, like you probably, like all of the festivals, like most of the people who work, in many festivals part-time for, doing production, most of them lost all of their income this year, and that was really
guest service.
And it was really sad. And for the filmmakers, let's face it, it's not the same experience. And Claude will be able to talk about that, I'm sure. But yes, they were happy that their films were being seen, yet, you don't meet anyone, you don't see, what's happening, you don't feel it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. And yes, we would really like to listen to Claude's perspective, how it feels to have a film premiered. And I know that your film was also playing in Rotterdam Film Festival. So at the beginning of the year, you even managed to travel, but then pandemic happened. So how was it, the decision of putting the films on the platforms? Because I understand that the goal of the filmmaker is to show the film, especially your film, that should be seen in a big screen, to the small screens. In Golden Apricot, we showed it in a cinema, by the way, so we had the opportunity to watch it. on a bigger screen.
Yeah, I think Bruno resumed quite clearly the situation as a for a filmmaker, because a real important thing is to have a contact with the audience. When I speak with some colleagues, like, you know, you work hardly on your film for 2-3 years, sometimes more than 3 years, and the contact with the people is so important, especially when you're traveling with your film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if I remember, I was in Berlin in March when the COVID started really. It's going to be strongly getting stronger, and I was still, like most of the people, dreaming and it's going to be okay in May. I was expecting some festival and going to go in France and whatever where, and happened what happened then. But if I just can open a little window, as a filmmaker with my film, I was disappointed because even now I don't know if I'm gonna subscribe my film to other festival. I don't know if it's important now, if I should continue. I don't know. That's the question. But for my day-by-day life as a filmmaker, it's funny because I was thinking in March, April, May, in summer, I was talking with some colleagues, more the artist or scriptwriter, than for them to say is the same thing. Even if there's a lockdown, for us, we're living in a kind of lockdown every year because we're working at home a lot. And so at the beginning, it was not so difficult for my day-by-day life as an artist, as a filmmaker, because I work in a new project and I start to work on the second project and the third project. So I work a lot and that's keep me more healthy
Mm-hmm.
and help me to project myself in the future. But as most of you, I give up now. I don't mean I give up, but now it's starting to be more difficult. But for the future of my film, I don't know what's going on and if I'm going to present my film in other film festival. I don't know if you have any question, but I try to resume the situation.
Yes, but I don't know. I think maybe it should be submitted to more festivals, but this is just my idea. But about coming from your new project, maybe to Telefilm Canada, and to ask a question to Camille. I would like to ask if there were any special grants for filmmakers, for example, like Claude, who is developing the projects during all this period and with more flexible deadlines or more flexible requirements, and what was done to help them?
There is a number of programs that are available in support of production or of films, of filmmaking, documentaries, feature films, low budget, higher budget, as well as script writing. I think for our more direct support to Claude is probably through the development program. Unless you have a project that is currently being proposed or submitted by your producer, Claude. The programs were indeed adjusted in terms of our capacity to finance, but also the timing of when principal photography was scheduled to take place. We were very mindful also of conditions around insurance. Health and safety of staff and teams and crews. Of course, documentaries are a lot more flexible, and so we were able to commit to documentaries much faster than fiction. So Claude, you have questions? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about this. I'm also teaching, like there's a school called l'Institut National de l'Image et du Son, and I'm responsible for the documentary on the direction. And it's quite difficult for the students actually, because there's so much limit. As you know, the documentary go in the street, go to they have different topics. For example, there's so many restrictions actually. For example, if a student want to make a film about this and who's living in a house with a lot of old people, is impossible actually, and there's so many restrictions. And I just know the student told me like they have to, I don't know if it's the union for the technician, but for every shooting, you have someone or responsible of the
sanitary measures, or
yeah, exactly.
Yes,
And,
yes, certainly.
And documentary, as you know, there's a really important thing to have kind of intimacy with your character, to be close, to be in like a bubbles. And if you have someone or cleaning everywhere you touch something, the equipment, it's the student told me it's really strange actually what's going on. Yeah, a fiction. I have some friend who was doing a fiction, and say it was they kind of find like a modus vivendi to still shooting, but yeah, it's strange. I didn't experience it yet. I start a new film, but I start working alone at home alone with the camera. But eventually, I don't know if I just start to present my film in different institutions, and I think I was expecting to shoot this winter, but to be more realistic, it's got to be more in spring. So.
Yeah, so just to tie in the Claude's experience, your students' experience, Claude, and the work that we did with mostly with producers with whom who are our main clients in production, our main partners. Of course, there were discussions about the adaptations that were required to scripts, about measures that they had to think, dream, or invent as they were going along. So we were very, very engaged in these discussions. And around documentary, what we liked to hear was how the filmmaker and the small team could be nimble and could go and still go and meet the subjects, maybe outdoors. What were accommodations made to be able to have this encounter, this meeting with someone's world, ideas. So it did require a lot more conversations, but I thought it was a very rich experience, although difficult of course, for filmmakers.
Thank you. Going back to the film festivals, what I was thinking while doing festival in November, that it is at the same time easy for us and it is difficult too, because for the ones who were doing their online first festivals in May or April, they were doing it for the first time, but that was a total lockdown and everyone was just at home. But now when half of people are working outside and half are working from home, it's really difficult to have the attention of these people. And I would like to listen to your idea about this. And another question that I have in a row with this one, what was the problems or the discussions with the filmmakers? Were they all interested to giving the film for online platforms? Because we know that many filmmakers don't want to go online and I would prefer to wait 1 year more to have a premiere in another festival or another edition. So please.
Okay. For your first question was related to the fact that we had events coming up later in the year, so there were like kind of also more expectations. I mean, for sure, we thought about the fact that on one hand, it really sucked to be, CPH docs or festivals like that, because they were, they really didn't have much time to try and, do something online. Same with Vision du Réel or other festivals. But the good thing for them is that no one had any expectations. So anything they were able to do as plan B was cool. And we spent a lot of time thinking, if we screw this up, we won't have any excuse because we're in November. So we're supposed to have, 6 months to, think about it. So there was a bit of stress around that for sure. But it's okay. I mean, in terms of the films, I think there are two things to be considered that are very important for not necessarily for this year, but for the future. You're mentioning filmmakers who don't want their films to be, might not want their films to be online, right? It hasn't been the case for most of them, because the reaction of most filmmakers this year has been, well, I don't have a choice. What can I say? There is no plan B. There is no, I can't see any kind of near future, like very near future, in which things will be back to normal. Hopefully not, in 2000, etc., but not right now. So most of them were okay. But there is one case that was very interesting, and that should really be discussed, because the one thing I was most anxious about was not the format of the festival or like how people would be in November. It was the fact that festivals, most of the festivals right now, their mandate is to be an alternative distribution system for art house cinema. Let's face it, like festivals have absolutely with films or like big budget films. They don't need festivals, right? I mean, festivals might need a few, big films just to get some promotion, but something like Blade Runner, doesn't need a festival. Like a festival might need Blade Runner to get some coverage, but it's different. So the films that we're supposed to support are films that usually are a bit more, aesthetically challenging, sometimes in terms of length, sometimes in terms of narration, sometimes, and so films that are trying to really work with the language of film. And the stress for me was how can you promote those films online? I mean, most of them honestly need a theater to be experienced, like a lot of them. So there was an example at the Berlinale, the film that won the new section Encounters that they created this year, which is this kind of Japan film shot in Japan, docu-fiction, the works and days of the name of the character,
very,
right?
very long one.
It's like an 8-9 hours film. Yeah. So I knew I knew of the work of those people. So it's one of the first films that I watched this year, right? So I really wanted to watch it. As soon as I watched it, I emailed back the filmmakers saying, I really like the film. There is just no way I will program it. Because I know I can't begin to think how people would, consume or watch this film online. It's just impossible. Like, it's a contemplative, with barely nothing happening film, in between fiction and documentary that lasts for 9 hours or something. Yes. Who would watch that? And the good thing is the filmmakers were, it's good that you're saying you won't program it, because we don't want you to. Like, we're canceling all festivals this year. Like, we know that our film is impossible to watch outside of an immersive experience, because online people will click, they will be like, okay, after 10-15 minutes, they will be like, there's like 9 hours of this, I'm gonna go on TikTok or something. So, and it's very important to think about that, because it's key to the future of film, meaning that many institutions are pushing, and the politics are pushing for online, which is good in a way, because obviously, it allows you, as we said before, to make films accessible to, a part of the audience that has no access to those kinds of films if they're not in a kind of big city or urban environment. Yet at the same time, online is not good for everybody. And some of the films, honestly, are very difficult to watch online. And the second thing is, and that's what was my obsession this year was how dependent you are from algorithm you have absolutely no control of in terms of promotion.
Mhm.
Because let's face it, the more online you are, the more money you put into Google, Facebook. No matter how you think about it, that's how it works. Like you keep spending so much money on trying to promote, films through platforms that are very opaque in their, ways of doing things, and that worries me a lot, actually. Like how dependent we are, from dependent to like very, very few companies who make an awful lot of money. And it's kind of, it's scaring me, actually.
Mhm.
If we go like all online, that for me, that would be a disaster. And then if we are trying to find hybrid ways of doing things, that could be very interesting. And I hope that, the festivals will have the means to do that. Yet again, we're lucky in Canada because a lot of things are public funded, which honestly is really, lucky for us because, I, as a film critic, as soon as the COVID started, I saw like colleagues of mine that I know from, for example, Film Comment in the US. It took 2 weeks and publication was, canceled, and they were all fired. I also run a film magazine here, and we had none of those issues, right? We still had, the public funding. We could go on. We could publish issues. We could run a festival. So like we're really lucky, but we have to be careful about online, especially for the films that we're trying to promote.
Yeah, and I want to say something, not only as a filmmaker, but as a cinephile or someone who likes film. It's a collective experience when you're in a theater. The silence, even if you don't know the people around you, you have to. For me, it's a kind of religious experience. And for example, I'm going to make a parallel event. Another time with my students, I propose them some film and they say, yeah, we're going to save time. I don't want to see the film in class. I want to see it alone. We're going to save time to discuss of other things. I say, no, we have to see the film together, because if you see the film, I propose you to you see it alone, and the other students, everyone see it alone. It's not the same thing. It's watch the movie together. So yeah, I'm aware about that. I don't want to look nostalgic, but for me, it's I can say a struggle. It's something really important we don't have to lose, the theater experience.
And for example, because of the COVID, probably you started to do teaching from home, and what you were doing for that, or no?
This time because it's a small class by chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not happening online. The class.
No, not at
all. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Because it's a small group. Usually, like it's a really intense course in documentary. Usually, we have six students, but because the COVID this year, we don't have a lot. We have less applications, so I only have 4 students, so we can make it class.
It's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Watch films there.
And I love to do it, and I have to have contact with people. So every time I go into the school, I really enjoy. And for example, they have to make a film about their session film. The most it's a short film, and just give them like input, discuss the film with them, with the mask, and even we have to take care of the sanitary reason. We be aware, and we have a real contact, a human contact,
Your students are very lucky.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm lucky too. I can live this experience.
Yeah.
Yes, it's wonderful. So, Kamel, also I wanted to ask and to know about the co-production opportunities, and especially for example, filmmakers, emerging ones from Armenia. who want to apply with their co-production projects with to Telefilm, or is there any difference, or has anything changed during this period, or they are still free, or they need, or maybe first I would like to listen more about the details, how they can apply, and how was it if it was affected by COVID.
Mhm. Yes, well, the impact of the pandemic was felt by all production, all production communities in Canada, but also in the partner countries,
Mhm.
definitely. I think the joint or collaborative projects, co-productions are being discussed. There's a strategy to go into production. There's a division of work that has to be reviewed. Conditions around insurance again, around the safety of crews and actors is really essential. So we have seen that co-production activity has continued with a lot of careful attention. And we have had a number of projects going ahead, both in television, feature film, fiction, and documentary. Some films are being shot in countries that are less affected by COVID or by the pandemic, which makes also create a number of challenges, moving people and creative people around, taking airplanes. So there are definitely challenges, but I think being a highly creative and resourceful community, there is always a plan A, a plan B, and then it goes down to D and E. So there are solutions that are catered to the circumstances. Sometimes the solution is to wait and start principal photography a little bit later. That I must say. So in terms of possibilities for Armenian filmmakers or Canadian filmmakers, we mostly receive applications for funding from the Canadian film community. Those are our clients. We also support their activities in co-production, but we deal with the Canadian side or the Canadian portion of projects. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, I have another question to Bruno about the forum that is also happening in frames of the festival, and it includes project pitchings, I guess. And how was your experience with that? I think online it is again it's very tricky. It's also easy and difficult.
I'm not involved in the forum actually, so I can't really tell you what my experience was of the forum. What I do feel though is that the forum is, I mean, usually professional, forums are the most adaptable to online editions, because doing some kind of pitching session, whether it is, in person or through Zoom, for me is less of a loss than, watching a film on a computer. So, and then again, you probably in the future, you'll have more and more hybrid versions of professional forums in festivals, also for questions of ecology, right? Like so many plane tickets, so many people traveling nonstop, to do things that they might, do through Zoom, actually. So, but the main difference this year for the forum actually was the fact that beyond like the technological challenges, it was just more focused on local filmmakers and local support. That was the orientation that they took, the team from the forum, to be more like Quebec, Canada focused, and less international. But from what I've heard, it hasn't been such, you know, the difference that you have is always the same thing. It's the, you know, the lucky discussions that you might have sometimes, because festivals are a bubble, right? So usually they're all based on the fact that beyond the films and beyond the events that are being programmed, you have a lot of people who are sometimes, you know, meeting by chance or having discussions very late that turn out to you know, to do something later. Like, you know, maybe, you know, a filmmaker and a producer, and, you know, let's take a situation, it's like 1 a.m., they're like half drunk, and they start talking about something. It might not get it anywhere, but sometimes it actually, you know, ends up being a film, you know, 2 years later.
Yeah.
That cannot happen online. I mean, I haven't seen anyone, you know, staying in a Zoom meeting 5 minutes after it was done, right? As soon as this discussion is over, we're back to,
yes.
to our business, all of us, right? So, and that's the one thing that you cannot have a hold on. And that's what festivals are for also, you know, those kind of chance encounters. And you go to the headquarters and you don't know who you're going to talk to, and you're going there to talk to a friend, and then you end up meeting someone that you don't know, and it ends up those are what festivals are for. Online, no.
Yes, I always did. I didn't believe in the concept of networking, but this year I understood what it means. I mean, the festivals and networking. Now I understand what it is. Since we are on our last 10 minutes, maybe we can go to Q&A to see what questions we have. The first question is for Bruno. And the question is, did your festival think about creating its own online platform? And how did you collaborate with online platforms, or you created your own one?
We thought about it for like a minute and a half because we don't have the expertise nor the money to create our own platform, right? So however, the decision that we made is that most of the festivals in Canada, many festivals in Canada, including major ones such as TIFF, they all collaborated with the existing Festival Scope / you know, Shift 72 platform. And we decided to go with a platform called Cinesend instead, for two reasons. One, which is that Cinesend is Canadian. Shift 72 Festival Scope is not, even though we are collaborating with them, you know, throughout the year for like on the pro site. So we decided to go with a Canadian platform, and also because this Canadian platform was also working with our ticket agency, like our box office partners. So for us, it was important to keep, you know, our partnership with already existing companies. But I think it's going to be, if festivals, the one thing that we should have discussed and might discuss one day is, I do think it would have been a good idea for festivals to talk with each other and be like some kind of a coalition. If you're a coalition of festivals, then you can start discussing the creation of a very, you know, of your own online platform. But we're programmers. Well, we're film programmers. We're not, you know, online platforms creators.
Maybe it could be done something with Zenodo, because it is kind of not coalition, but social media for film professionals. And maybe it could go something through it. Because for the Golden Apricot also, we are thinking about all the platforms that we can go through. And also another interesting way was Vimeo, because they also started to do the broadcastings, and I think some festivals went for it, but it's all a bit tricky, I think.
It depends also if you want to geo-blocked, where you want to geo-block. It has an impact. You know, we decided on Cinesend also because I needed the festival to be geo-blocked in Quebec, not in Canada. And festival scope cannot do that. So it was also part of the issue. Like festival scope and Shift 72, they cannot geo-block in Quebec.
Okay, I thought that they're doing geolocation. Okay, so I learned something new.
But because Canada is weird, right? Like you have the country and you have the provinces.
Oh yeah, they're doing only based on countries. And
you can geoblock based on country.
I see. We have one more question, I think, for you, and has ever there played any Armenian film at the festival that you may remember?
Oh my God, that's a good question. Honestly, I don't have the answer right now.
It means no.
You have so many films, eh?
I mean, this year, I don't think we had an Armenian film. In past years, surely, but there's just like too many. I wasn't prepared for that question at all. Honestly, I cannot. There is nothing that pops right now.
You all need to, I think, attend Golden Apricot Film Festival and to see Armenian films.
Exactly, yes.
Yes, that's what festivals are for.
Mm-hmm.
One more question. Armenia and Canada are both members of Evrimajis, and this is a good opportunity to develop co-production between these two countries. What our festivals or organizations can do on this direction? Maybe question for Camille and for Bruno too. We don't hear you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. We are thrilled to be part of, Canada's thrilled to be part of Eurimage. Canada and Argentina are the only non-European countries member of Eurimage, so it's really an honor and also a way to support a joint production. So yes, certainly there can be projects that have an Armenian component, Armenian creatives and Canadian creatives that could be supported or submitted to Eurimage for funding. So yes, we actually look forward to seeing the first project that would bring our creative communities together. Certainly.
Thank you.
In terms of festivals, it's part of the forum, so I can't really go into details about that since I'm not in charge of this. The only thing that I can say is that there are a few things that are being developed in terms of collaborations between festivals and potential co-production opportunities, which are related to what they call SODEC Lab. So SODEC is the kind of Quebec branch, it's like Téléfilm Canada a bit, but like in Quebec, specifically in Quebec, and they do those labs in which they invite filmmakers and producers to go to very specific festivals to and I don't know what they do there, so I can't go into details. I just know that there is like a SODEC lab, for example, in CPH Docs, and there was also one in DocFest München in Germany. And I know that one of the goals obviously was to put in to bring German filmmakers and producers and German and Canadian filmmakers and producers in touch, so that they could and see what's going to happen. And it was a deal between festivals, like between RIDM and DocFest München. It was like a 3-year or 4-year deal. Each year there were people from Germany coming to RIDM and people from Canada and Quebec going to DocFest München. So, but I after that I have no idea what they do. So I don't want to.
They are developing probably something.
Yeah.
And I think I would ask the last questions that is addressed to all panelists. And what lesson could be learned from this COVID period of our life? Maybe Claude, you can start it.
I want to give the chance to Camille or Bruno. Oh my God, it's I was not prepared to this kind of question. Honestly, um, honestly, I can answer. I'm sorry. Do you have any clue, Bruno?
What lessons can be learned?
Yeah.
Adaptability, enjoy life while you can.
Yes.
Um,
Everything is
no, I think
possible.
it's,
Be positive.
in terms of adaptability, I think for sure. I think the way I see COVID is COVID will probably be seen in the future as the great, accelerator of things, and we have to be very careful. Like, we kept talking about uh, going online content, accessibility, etc., etc. Those issues were already being discussed, and they've been discussed for years already. And this year we didn't have a choice but to make the leap into online. But for sure, like all of the festivals were thinking about how can we reach, how can we use the internet to reach outside of, our, small like downtown network. And I think it's going to have a huge impact on distribution, like major. I mean, we've seen that, like even I think yesterday, like was it yesterday that Warner Brothers announced that
Yes.
the whole slate of their films next year will be simultaneously in theaters, and
Yes.
I think it's really the way I see it is that I'm really 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 scared about the fact that online is not for any kind of content, and it will always promote some kind of very specific content. Let's talk about Netflix. You have a lot of amazing films on Netflix. No one watches them. They keep pushing the same content, which is the one that is the most, adaptable, the most, easy to watch on Netflix, because even though you can have an amazing author documentary on Netflix, most of the time you have to search for it, like really hard to find it. And it's normal because Netflix, will promote content that is, easier online, like, series and, a certain kind of, and it's not bad content necessarily. It's not like a judgment I'm making on this content. It's just that online, you tend to promote something that is more dynamic, that is the pace has to be kind of quick to keep, people's attention, things like that. So this is something that we have to be very aware of, because otherwise there is a whole like part of cinema that's going to suffer, because you can't compete. You cannot. The films that need, I mean, for example, as opposed to Claude, I don't need that much the collective experience. As a cinephile, there is nothing I love more than going into an empty theater. I love it so much. Like being, with just a few people, no one to bother me. I'm really like I'm happy with my thoughts.
No popcorn, no noise, popcorn.
Yeah, no popcorn.
Online.
I'm really really happy, But the one thing that I have in a theater that I cannot have at home is the immersion. At home, even if you have a projector, if you have like, the money to create your own theater, you will still have family, cell phone, anything that might be able to distract you. You don't have that in a theater. And distraction is the worst for some films. Distraction is okay if you're watching, like an HBO TV series. It's okay. You just pause and you do something and you come back. But if you're trying to get into, a proposition, like I can't see someone really enjoying like a Pedro Costa film from home. It's difficult. Like you need to be. So we have to think about that, because otherwise we will be dependent on very very few people, mostly American, who will decide you know, 90% of what's going to be promoted and accessible in the future.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I want to say something else about that. Our sensibility as a spectator about I can see it since a few years. Everything you have to have a story really fast, and you know what I mean. And I can see that people, if I compare to old film of Tarkovsky or Bresson or Antonioni, a lot of people find that too slow. And it's not only because internet, it's the words change, but I'm more aware about if we see most of the film on internet on our little screen, or even in big screen, it's still at home. It's not the same experience. So we have to be aware about not only about the topics, but the language of the film. Because Netflix and Hollywood films start to be so powerful. But I resume a little bit. I resume, it's more complicated, but anyway.
And in terms of festivals, you need to find your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing I've learned this year. Like one of the things, which is that, you know, usually festivals, I do think that most of the time, like everybody, we might tend to be a bit on an autopilot. You know, once you found the kind of the form of your festival, I see most festivals doing the same thing year after year after year. And this year, the main question is, why would people why would send to yet another festival? Which is a good question, you know, like once you've had your major festivals, like, you know, if we talk about Claude, like if you've had your Rotterdam premiere, like it's great, and or if you go to Berlinale, it's great because, you know, it's a major like industry festival that puts your film, you know, out there, and it's good for the film. But once you've had that, what about the other like 1,500 festivals that will invite your film? You know, what would make you decide on one and not the other if they're all proposing the same thing, which is that, you know, we're going to program your film, and there's going to be like a little description of your film, and then we're going to do a Q&A like everybody else. And I think online it's even more obvious that you know, the more like kind of originality you might have, we have to think about beyond the films. You know, some festivals are only talking. I had a discussion with colleagues, and at some point it was a lot about curation. And I was like, but, you know, like honestly, I do think that at least half the festivals in the world could have the exact same programming made by an algorithm of like best of festivals. No, because let's face it, like most of the festivals, if they are not, you know, based on submissions, and if they have a program that is, let's say, you know, 50% or 60% based on films that have been shown elsewhere and already have a reputation, you know, yeah, if I'm being like the most cynical side of myself would tell you that, you know, an algorithm can do that. You just need to have the right one. The one thing that an algorithm cannot do is how do you create a context that is original and interesting to present those films. You know, you don't need, obviously you don't need to be a genius to try and get the Palme d'Or from Cannes. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's not about is it good or not to show the Palme d'Or. It's more about
do we need it?
No. What will you do with it? You know, will you just show it like everybody else? Like, will you be, you know, or will you create some kind of festival context in which the film will be discussed differently? That's, for me, like in the future, it's going to be very important, because otherwise, what's the difference between watching Claude's film online in a festival in Europe and watching Claude's film online in a festival in Canada, or watching Claude's film, you know what I mean? Like, it's on the surface, it's the same. Like it's especially online, unless you have a special discussion or something that makes it, you know.
I think I agree, but there is also something that I would like to mention about, for example, having Palme d'Or from Cannes. I totally understand what you mean, but also there are lots of countries that these films are not getting distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, we discussed that festivals have this mission of doing distribution for author films. And for example, like countries like Armenia, Golden Apricot is the only institution or the festival who is bringing this film. So besides doing the programming part, we also feel responsible of bringing this film and presenting to the audience, because they would need to wait like a year to get it from any platform, or when it is available on, I don't know, DVDs or Blu-rays. And it's a question, would they get it or no? Because, and so I against the algorithm anyways.
But you're completely right. It was the beginning of the conversation, the fact that it's like an alternative, festivals are an alternate distribution system. The main question and the main worry is it's not the same online, right? Like if your Palme d'Or has no distribution in Armenia, you can show it usually in a theater because you're a festival and you selected it, and you know it's the one way to watch it. But if in the near future we're not extremely careful, this Palme d'Or will be bought by a major, you know, online platform that will show it everywhere, you know, with no one really caring that much about it. And, you know, and so it's going to be, that's the main thing, right? If you have major platforms, a few major platforms who take a hold of everything, they won't be able to support it. And you as a festival will have more difficulties, you know, getting the film because it's already, you know, it's already online, not in the right way maybe, but then you're stuck, and you know you can't do it on your site. So we have to be careful about the big companies.
Can I just precise something? If I say before, then I don't want to, I was not sure if I'm going to still submit my film. It was not about, I went to great festival, I don't need it. No, even for me to present my film in a small festival, it's just a question, it costs us money as a filmmaker. And I think it's more difficult after a year and a half, your film was running in different festival. But even if it's a small festival, I enjoy to present it. For me, it's important. So I just want to clarify this point.
Yes. And
it was not I give up, sorry.
Yes, thank you very much. And Camille, maybe you would like to add something.
Well, the greatest learning this year for me personally, and also for my team, was that we basically stopped for a few weeks. We stopped everything, and we listened, and we just reached out to our partners, collaborators, and we listened. How are you going to reinvent yourself? How are you going to make a film that will reach people, that will touch people? How are you going to reach out to an audience, or take this tremendous opportunity to reach out to a much wider audience? And also, it has, I think, the transformation has occurred, and it's up to us to make sure that it supports our efforts with the best interest in mind. That is to share a point of views, to introduce people to new ideas, to have as vast an audience as possible, and to make sure that the rights are still held by people who created works. So this is what I think.
Wonderful. I think our time is up. So I would like to thank you for this very interesting conversation. And also I have one special greetings for you all from Susanna, who says hi to you. And I think we need to wrap up. So really, thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. And I hope that all our pessimistic anticipations won't come true, and we will have our this better world very soon back to us. And we will, I mean, I'm trying to be optimistic, and we will meet somewhere at the festival, and especially at the Golden Apricot International Film Festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sona.
Thank you, Sona.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.